Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Diversified major Glencore has managed to scale the low commodity price hurdle with significant help from its marketing arm and also looks set to improve safety margins worldwide. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Glencore produces and markets 93 commodities, yet it still reflected a resilient operating performance despite low commodity prices. How did they do that?
Yeah, marketing is doing very well for that company. You can see it's a big driver of the revenue, and of course it's got a long history because the Glencore of old was a marketing arm and now it's become an operational arm as well in a big way. The combination of the two is proving formidable. You know, you could see that the company did very well, very much better than its peers in these very tough times, and seems set to do even better going forward because it's also got a very good mix of commodities which are starting to firm up from a price point of view, and they're not in iron ore to any great extent as, you know, BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto find themselves, and Vale. And it's the nickel now that's just coming to the fore. You know, copper is starting to return, zinc, all those forgotten metals are starting to make a bit of a mark again, and they are right in that in a very good way. So I think that they're adding a new dimension. You know, they spoke out of London to the media and to analysts, and we had long sessions with them, interesting question and answer situations, and getting a much bigger insight into the company makes me feel that perhaps it's going to be a company that changes the paradigm of the way, you know, these big companies have been operating in the past. And you could see that even a commodity like grain, you know, came to the fore very, very strongly. So it's got a growing marketing arm as well. It will soon be also, you know, far more formidable, I think, in years to come in oil and gas, because it's also getting that slot. It's doing the exploration now, and of course these commodities come back, so you never know. You can't predict, you know, what's going to happen. I mean, who would have predicted in the past that oil would have halved in price, and who would have thought the iron ore prices would be so low that virtually every project in West Africa, you know, is being suspended, deferred or cancelled, because at one stage iron ore was such a sought after commodity, and all of a sudden things turn. There's an oversupply situation, the price falls, people move out of it, and a lot of people get hurt. So the supply issue has become crucial, and that's what Glencore keeps harping on. You know, don't oversupply because you're going to cannibalize your own market. Make sure that you're in balance, or, you know, you're slightly in deficit, because you can get hurt if you just willy-nilly look in isolation at what sort of return you're going to get with existing fundamental figures, and all of a sudden the whole picture changes, and the companies find themselves underwater.
So it would seem the best strategy is to have sort of a finger in every pie. Well,
they really there's no diversification that's broader than what you know, Glencore has got, and I think it's going to stand them in very good stead. You know, they've got more ships around the place than the Royal Navy. Not even, I'm saying the ships that they can call on. You know, it's a massive, big logistical fleet. They can work on arbitrage arrangements, and they understand the market so well because they've got so many people working so intensely and marketing and trading within those areas that they can report back. They get such a wealth of information that it assists them in the actual extraction of the metals and minerals in which they are now growing as well.
Now, CEO Ivan Glasenberg says the company is transitioning into a deficit in most of the commodities that it produces. Please elaborate on this.
You know, so he's found himself in a sweet spot. He hasn't gone into these commodities that are now in trouble. You know, he has kept on the fringes of those, probably knowing the market and seeing it so well, and he's ended up, you know, with dogs of the past like zinc suddenly coming to the fore. Nickel coming to the fore, copper starting to return, coal, they've cut back on a lot of their coal, and they're working very intensely on making sure that their costs are down in coal. So they're in quite a good spot, even in coal, you know, which is seen as very low priced at the moment. The way they've cut back and the way they play the domestic markets and the global markets and the seaborne markets is very clever, and so that they can make sure that they get a return even in difficult circumstances. And in coal, which a lot of people are lamenting at the moment, they still, you can see, doing well as could be and looking to do much better towards the end of the year.
Now, sadly, the company reported 16 fatalities at its operations, but it has vowed to migrate first world safety to third world countries. How do they propose doing that?
There was an air of solemnity about this, which I liked. No one wants people to go to work to die. And most of all, boards of directors. And you can see that, it just hurt the company that so many fatalities took place, 16. And although it's fewer than last year, 23, one is too many. So they're going all out, trying to migrate their first world record in safety, in the more developed countries, try and take it into those difficult geographies, particularly, countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Bolivia, Zambia, and Kazakhstan. Now, they've really made a big effort in Kazakhstan to such an extent that they are leading now in Kazakhstan, and they have a policy to actually share best practice with everybody, in a country in the interest of safety. So everybody works together in the interest of safety. So they're saying, look, some of the calls are for them to leave countries because the fatality rate is so high. They're saying, no purpose is going to be served by that. They must really migrate what they're doing in good geographies and developed geographies where they'll employ about 140,000 people, and every death is one too many, but 3 deaths in 140,000 people is a better picture than 13 deaths with 60,000 people, which they're experiencing in these challenging geographies. So they're saying they're duty bound to make sure that first world type of safety practice gets migrated into these difficult geographies, and that they improve the picture there, cut down on the fatality rate. And they really, nobody can predict the future as to when it's going to happen, but you can see that the effort is very, very strong. The determination is good. And I like that in a management, that they really want to look after their people. It must be a terrible situation to be a CEO and that 16 of your people died this year. It's enough to get boards of directors moving, and you can see that they are. And hopefully they'll succeed with this because the will is there. It's just that the conditions in which people live in, Bolivia and Kazakhstan, Zambia, Democratic Republic, are different to developed world. So they're not used to these safety regulations. Now, as was explained, some of the vehicles that these workers travel in are unsafe, and some of the safest places are at the mine. So they're not used to being in safe areas, and so their behavior can tend to be a little bit unsafe, and that's what they've got to do. They've got to change the behavior, which is always a very, very difficult thing to do. But you can see that they're determined to do it as part of their whole thrust, to the frontier. They want to go into areas that are geographically challenging, but now they've got a duty to make sure that the people are safe at the same time, and they're rising to that challenge. And I think they had a 47% improvement in their lost time injury rate in the last 5 years, if you look at those statistics. So overall, they're tending to do better, but they've got a big job to do in countries like Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Zambia, and Democratic Republic of Congo. And you can see the determination, particularly from Ivan Glasenberg, to do this. And I thought it was also good that some of the analysts questioned him on this, because this is an important issue. It's a human issue. And also that he was questioned on his membership of the ICMM, which is the International Council of Mining and Metals, which also doesn't allow anyone in its doors. You've got to jump through a lot of hoops before you can get there. But it's all part of this move by global mining to really try and emphasize that they are working hard on making people healthier, making people safer, eradicating disease. They've done a lot in the malaria area. And if they can work together like that, they could be like a global chamber of commerce, not a chamber of commerce, a chamber of mines, that actually could do a lot of positive things in the world. And we know that mines can generate a lot of growth, in emerging economies. And if they can do it in an exemplary fashion, it's going to be wonderful for those countries. And you can see the will to do that, because it is the thing to do. It's the best way to do it. and they know that, and they want to roll out this best practice, and I like that, and I like the sort of solemnity and the regret around these deaths.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.